Floro was born from reflection. We asked ourselves, what is luxury? Does that lay in a chosen ingredient? Lobsters, langoustines, and Wagyu beef from Japan? Or can we create the same complexity in a different way? We closed the restaurant for a period of 2 years, visited over 150 farmers, foragers, and fishermen, really to dig deep and to understand what lies behind this industry. I started when I was 15. I tried to absorb everything I saw. I could help them with cleaning mushrooms. I saw vegetables and fruits I've never seen in my life. I saw the ambition, the fire, like the drive to get somewhere. Being driven on pressure is something that is just in me as a person. I was there because I knew I wanted to become a chef. The flavor is very nice. A lot of sand. After a lot of experiences, I got the chance to work with Bas van Kranen, Restaurant De Leuf. So it was a restaurant that had 2 Michelin stars in that time. Really in the southern part of Holland. It was a small family-owned restaurant. After 1 year, I became a sous chef. And unfortunately, very short on that, I think between a period of 6 or 7 months, Paul passed away in his sleep. And I was so included in their family that it hit me like I was part of the family also. Seeing everything that Paul built together with Sandra, his wife, just fell down from one day to the other one. I was 21 years old, so I was still very young. But for me, the only thing that I was thinking about was the future of his wife, the future of his children. So I decided to offer to stay there for a longer time without having the experience of being a head chef of a restaurant, without having Michelin stars, without knowing any of this. I just felt the importance to stay with them and to figure out together what we could do. That was, I think, a very intense moment of my life. On a certain moment, you're just standing there and you need to run a restaurant. You need to start to be creative. Because of the pressure of the fact that the restaurant had 2 Michelin stars, I didn't want to fail. If I look back at that period now, then I really see that I was too tough on myself. I was even more tough on my team. I think I lost my team 3 times in a year. Till after 1 year, we got 1 Michelin star. To put like a high pressure on myself, I think that is a very natural thing. But on that moment, I was too young and too blind to see what the emotions were for other people. So I was just doing whatever I liked. And when I decided to change a menu in 1 week time, I had no clue that I was affecting the service team, my kitchen team, the suppliers, that I was affecting so many people. But even though, I just decided to do it. After the first year of being the head chef of De Leuf, we signed up for one of the biggest competitions in Holland. The Gouden Koksmuts, like the Golden Chef's Hat. It is a competition that is held once a year, and it is only Michelin star chefs that are attempting to this challenge. You get like a black box of ingredients and you need to cook a 4-course menu. As the youngest team that was standing there, and we were bloody nervous. We were half an hour late on the challenge because we underestimated the drive from the south to Amsterdam. So we stepped in half an hour later, and yeah, we just thought from the beginning, this is going to be very fun, but fuck it, we're here between those big 1 and 2 Michelin star chefs, and this is an impossible game. I walked outside with the 2 guys that we did the challenge with, and then just before they did the award show, we walked back in, and I told the boys, like, it was a very cool experience, but obviously it's impossible that we win this.
En toen zei ik tegen de jongens van, Ik zei, we hebben echt heel mooi gekookt. Ik zei, maar moet je eens kijken wat hier staat. Ik zei, dit kunnen we niet gewonnen hebben. Ik zei, dat kan niet.
En de winnaar is restaurant De Looi.
They called out our name as the winner of the challenge. I do think that also a part like this, it doesn't do anything with your ego or it doesn't do anything with pride. But for me, it really helped to release pressure on myself. With moments like these, I became more confident that people like my food. On a certain moment, I decided to open my own restaurant. So young as I was, I signed for a rental agreement. I did a prepayment on a inventory in a restaurant in Eindhoven. And just on the day that I signed, that I got the keys, I've got a call from Richard van Oosterbrugge. In that time, 2 Michelin star chef. He had a question for me to see if I was interested to take over his position to run the restaurant here in Amsterdam. I remember very well that during that service, so during the night, the only thing I could think about was this offer. After a day, I called him back and I just told him like, okay, I'm gonna be in Amsterdam, let's just meet, have the conversation, and who knows. It was the most spontaneous thing I've ever done. Going from a very small village towards a big city like this, taking over the restaurant from a 2 Michelin star chef. All those things were challenging, but for me, like challenging enough, almost scary enough to set the challenge for me, to think like, okay, let's do it, let's rock it. When I arrived here back in 2017, the restaurant was called Restaurant Bordeaux, the French name for on the water side. It was a very classic French restaurant and it was totally packed in gold. So from the top to the bottom, everything was packed in gold leaf. So you can imagine that the concept was all about the definition of luxury. So we sold kilos of caviar and we sold kilos and kilos of Wagyu beef, big blue lobsters, 2 kilo langoustines. That's incredible. Like everything that was my dream always as a chef was what I could sell in this place.
Sure.
After my first year, I also felt that it became boring because what is the fun part of cooking that langoustine perfect over and over again? What is the challenging part? Like, what do you need to put in creativity if your ingredient is already here? In that time, my kitchen was so concentrated on being faultless, on trying to be very stable, that it was less exciting also. The focus was on luxury ingredients, and I think I also tried to cook towards that expectation. It started to bite on me because it didn't fit to what I was standing for. Also, in all those years, let's say in 15 years' time, I just worked 60, 70 hours a week in the kitchen without spending any time talking with farmers, talking with fishermen, trying to do a bit more investigation in everything that happens behind the ingredient. It was just like, I want to have this radish, and I want to have it in this size, and I want to have 200 per week, not knowing how long it takes, where it's coming from, what the process is. I didn't care about that. With having this in my mind, from the moment the pandemic hit, it started to give me the chance to overthink what we were doing. So instead of sitting still, I decided to shift towards doing research. So I gave the task to all my team members, kitchen and service, to start an investigation in different types of topics. One of the guys needed to do with the topic of the dairy industry. I asked someone else to do research behind growing of different varieties of grains and all the different grains that there are. Another person needed to do like a deep dive into the ocean. Like, how is our fish caught? What are the techniques that boats use? What is the impact of a boat? And what are we doing right now? It was very valuable because we never did that. We never asked ourselves the question, what happened with our ingredient before it came into the kitchen. I do think that on that moment, the realization started that there is more than only rating an ingredient on its quality. One of the conversations that changed my perception of cooking was the one with Jan Dirk. He showed me every part of his production, of his farm, and what was, I think for me, one of the most impressive parts is that he has control of every part of producing his cheese. So his goal is making an amazing cheese, but it already starts with growing his own food. He doesn't give his cows soy, he doesn't give him sugar, he doesn't give him antibiotics. He tried to find a way to grow his own food for his cows, to make sure that he knows what they eat. With the production of milk, you have the heavy process where a cow needs to give birth every year to give milk. Something I never thought about, but a lot of common sense. With that, you have calves that get born, and 50% of the calves that get born are male, are bulls. I didn't know that bulls are useless in this industry. So bulls get slaughtered because they're useless. The females, the cows, they get raised again as a dairy cow. His story was so incredibly strong that this directly reflected to me as a chef that I thought, like, why I don't work like this? Why I'm not interested in the way how my fish is getting caught? How can I learn to cook without dairy? It changed my full perception of being a chef. From the moment we got the message that all the restaurants could reopen again, I remember that I walked to the general manager and I told him that I didn't want to open the restaurant anymore. I remember that he thought that I was getting crazy. I think he was a bit mad also at me because I was just an idiot that after 2 years of having the restaurant closed, I decided that I didn't want to open the restaurant anymore. It gave me the time to speak with people and to think about everything we learned, to eventually come back the research of 2 years, to put it on the table and to try to mix everything together in, okay, if we have one chance to start all over again, how should we do it? I got a lot of questions fired off to me in what do you want to do? Like, how do you see yourself against other restaurants right now? Like, what is your kitchen? And I thought that I had my story straight. I just had my assumptions there. I said, like, yeah, what do you mean? Like, my kitchen is based on luxury ingredients. I have a very light kitchen. There's a lot of energy in my kitchen. And then I got a second question fired that started to let me think, like, what the fuck are we doing? The question was, what do you do the same as all the other restaurants? It was something that I never thought about. I always thought about what we were doing, but I never thought about what we were doing the same. All the Michelin star restaurants in the city were doing a 6 or 7 course menu. Everyone was working with langoustines and turbo and lobster and pigeons, and everyone was offering a vegetarian menu. Everyone was doing a wine pairing. In all those years of working in the kitchen, I realized that we were all doing the same with a different sauce. on a certain moment, I got green light to close the restaurant, to lose the Michelin star, and to start all over again without even knowing what we were going to cook. The only thing I did before opening Flore was setting limitations of fishes we could use, not using any dairy in the kitchen, using products from close by. Those were the only rules we set ourselves. So we started to write a menu, and from there we had the idea that we were going to work towards something completely new. And I remember that 2 weeks before opening, we started to cook that menu. So we started to cook everything, obviously without butter, without dairy. And after the first tasting, after our week of trials, the full menu was shit. So we failed on the complete menu 1 week before opening because I really underestimated the impact of butter and the impact of dairy in dishes. So everything was out of balance. It was very hard to get my cuisines right because normally we did it very gentle in a pot, using butter to give the right consistency to a fish. And now everything was on the grill, and we didn't own the technique of grilling. We had no idea how to do it, so we needed to reinvent ourselves in just 1 week time. Yeah, it was crazy to open a place like that without having any idea what we're gonna do. I think we spent 120 hours in a week to get our menu on point. Before we're going to start to develop a menu, I want to be aware of the ingredients we're going to work with. And not only in where do they come from, but I want to know if it's coming from a healthy soil. I want to know how long it takes before it grows. I want to know if the other parts of the plant are edible. So I'm going to go for an in-depth research behind the ingredient before we're going to start to serve it. Sometimes that takes years. Now, for example, this year we have like a beautiful beetroot. They call it the flame beet because when you cut it open, it has like those beautiful flames inside. And we tried to grow this together with a couple of farmers in different areas to understand the difference of the soil. And this year is the first year in 3 years of doing trials that we really tasted that the ones that are planted on a different area with different soil have a different sweetness as the ones from the other farm. For me, those collaborations are the start of what we define as luxury. Are you fine? I think it's spicy, yeah?
It's more spicy than what do you have?
Yeah? Okay, I'm gonna go for a bite, but then we all need to go for a bite.
Because they're very juicy.
No, I go first. I don't want
Just take in the middle. With this. Yeah.
No, it is. It's like a bell pepper.
It's not like.
Our kitchen is changing ongoing, and the part of creativity starts from the moment we get a new ingredient in. There is one chef who is working on research and development all week long, and this person is in charge for all the R&D projects that need a longer time. But the biggest part of that is investigation in techniques, improving the aging of fish, improving the affinage of seaweed. He's busy with trials of plant-based cheeses, and we're not there, but these are the projects that take a lot of time. One of those projects, for example, is chocolate. We don't use chocolate in Flore, but I do think that there was always a part inside me that I wanted to use chocolate in the restaurant because it is something comfortable. It is something that people really like at the end of their meal. Yeah, so for the past 4 years we were busy with making a chocolate, but a chocolate from ingredients from Holland. We did a lot of different trials. And eventually we came to a koji fermentation just to change the enzymes, also to get a different sugar content.
After the fermentation of 48 hours, we roast it very darkly, same as that they do with cacao fruits. And then we blend it in the grinder like this, and we do that for between 24 and 48 hours till it's super smooth. So it's between two stones. This is a chocolate, but then a chocolate made from rye. So if you're gonna have a look inside, then you see that it has like a very smooth consistency. This is just the beginning part now, so it still needs to spin way longer. But this is now the beginning part of what we call our variety of the chocolate.
We opened Floren with a team of 5 chefs, 4 people in the service team, a very small team. And the interesting thing was that, I don't know why, but everyone expected Floren to become a vegetarian restaurant. Maybe because we did vegetarian takeaways in the period that the restaurant was closed, or I have no idea. But because there were so many rumors going around, people were talking about Floren like going to be a new vegetarian restaurant in town. And that gave such a buzz that people wanted to see what we were doing, that from the moment we opened the bookings, I think we had over 1,000 bookings in one day. Our biggest challenge on that moment was like, fuck it, let's go. This is the moment, we cannot fail. Like, we just need to show what we can do now. I must admit that from the opening night, I have no idea anymore what happened. The only thing I do remember from the opening day is that I didn't have my starter fixed. So on our opening day, in the morning when I came in, I still needed to think about the concept for having the first course of the menu. On that moment we had so many amazing inspiration from the farms in the fridge. Everything that was going on the fields right now, I was standing there and I just thought like, grab everything and I'm just gonna make a dish with all these ingredients inside. This is also the only dish that is on the menu as a signature dish, because it eventually just did set the expression of what we try to do. Floren reopened, we changed the name, we changed the website, we changed our values. People were blown away by the experience, by the food, by how creative it was, but people always mentioned that the interior was out of date. The feeling when you enter the restaurant now is very humble, very natural. It just fits to what we try to do on the plate. You don't know what happens when you close a restaurant and you're gonna open a new restaurant. It's like, what's gonna happen? Are we gonna have guests? Are people gonna come to us? Or do they hear too many rumors of plant-based chef? Or we had no idea. After 8 months, the ceremony of Michelin was there. So I went there with a couple of people. I must admit that obviously we hoped that the restaurant would get a Michelin star. We also did have hope on a green star because I felt it was a very easy communication for us. Like, what do we try to express with our kitchen? So we were sitting there as one of the first restaurants. Restaurant Floren got the award for the Michelin Green Star. So yeah, we were very happy with that. The ceremony went on and they started with all the 1 Michelin star restaurants. All the restaurants passing by, all the celebrations of all the new 1 Michelin star restaurants. And we were not inside there. So I just tapped on the legs of the boys next to me, Jasper and Stijn, and I just said like, fuck me. Like, what the fuck is this? How is this possible? Like, it was quite strange, but we just thought like, okay, let's see. And then they started with the ceremony of the 2nd star.
Restaurant met 2 sterren. Restaurant Floren. Bas van Kranen.
And it was crazy. And I think you could hear us shouting outside of Carré, outside of the building where we were doing it. But yeah, we were so incredibly flabbergasted about the fact that we started all over again from zero. We just got 2 stars and a green star. It was really insane. It was above all expectations of what we could do with Flora. But I do think that our values are the most important ones. And that is that we really try to see how we can do it better for ourselves, how we can be aware of what we do, and how we can inspire chefs also to dig a bit deeper in where to start and how to cook.